All right, back with another Bad Runners Take with my dude, Wolffrunner, Brian Peterson, coming to you from Arizona. I'm coming to you from Paris, France. But we will not let technology come between us. In fact, we're upping our technology game right now. We want to hear from you more because we know we're sometimes throwing out controversial takes, and maybe controversial is even not a big enough word, just random takes and our takes. And we want to hear your takes, and we want to hear what you think about our takes. And so you can now call RUNMORE649. That's RUNMORE649, 786-667-3649. I'll have it in the show notes. And you can leave us a message or you can text that number. Texting is fine. It's accepted, but we really want to hear your voice. So if you have a hot take, it doesn't even have to be about what we're doing. Just know that if you leave the message, that message belongs to me and I can make it public. So be careful what you say. I'd love for you to put your name on it. So we can know who you are, because really this is mostly, not entirely about having fun, but we do want to hear from you. We want to play these voice messages on the air. And so we've got plenty to talk about today, but if you've been a fan for a while, we've got lots of old episodes too. Everything is on the table. So you can call and talk about anything. This phone number is going to be mostly used for Bad Runners Take. So we want to play your comments. We want to respond to them in real time. I want to surprise Brian with some of the crazy stuff that you all say, and maybe some of the sensical stuff too, but to be determined. So that number is RUNMORE649, 786-667-3649. Oh, welcome, Brian.
I'm excited.
How you
man.
doing?
I'm excited.
Yeah, me too.
I can't wait for the hotline to start blowing up.
I know
we love everyone, but we have a special place in our heart for the haters. So if you've got some fun, spicy takes on us personally, bring them on. We welcome.
Please.
Every and all comment.
Please call anonymously and just run me through it. That would not bother me, and I would love to put it on the air. Talk about how boring my voice is, all that sort of stuff. You wouldn't be wrong. Wouldn't be the worst thing I heard today from my kids, All right, we're talking about a handful of things today, but probably the banner, the marquee, is ambassador culture. And on one end, you've got this thing of ambassador culture that's like really awesome. You get to have a deeper connection to a brand that you love. You get to rep it. You get discounts, maybe even some free stuff depending on the brand. It's great. Okay. On the other end, though, and you're starting to see this more and more, is maybe some entitlement culture. And I don't mean this to be critical of anybody, other than to say we're seeing maybe an average and a trend, and Brian's more so put it on my radar, of people feeling like that through these ambassador programs that maybe they deserve something. And so we just want to kind of recognize this whole spectrum. And so teeing it up, Brian, where would you take it from there?
Yeah, I mean, I think first, like you said, it's kind of like, it's a culture it's very well embedded in running, not just trail running, but road running itself. And I feel like it's kind of unique, I think, to this adult hobby. I don't know many other, industries, that have this heavy culture, unless it's kind of like around like adulting, right? Like I was trying to think like where else is there an ambassador culture? And it's more probably influencer based, I guess, is what it's called outside of running. You're a mom, and so you become an influencer for things that are, in the motherhood realm, right? Or, you're an automotive guy and you become an influencer around things of that nature, right? Or whatever the case is, right? But it's weird how it's an ambassadorship, type of moniker within running. And yeah, I mean, I got into trail running and immediately saw, these ambassador programs, and they were super captivating. The way that I get into sports is all in. And so I saw that as something that I wanted to obtain for myself, right? Like you come into the sport, you kind of observe the lay of the land, and you see, hey, as I start getting more serious with this, like I'd like to become an ambassador and participate and, give some feedback to brands and, maybe help, with developing product. And you have kind of this big wide-eyed goal of what that ambassador program would kind of mean, But yeah, I mean, once you get into it, like you realize like these ambassadorships, like there's not really a lot of like organization there. There's not really a lot of engagement between the brand itself and the ambassador. So we can get into kind of the zoomed in view, but yeah, I mean, I wanted to first kick around, like, what do you even conceptualize around the term ambassador as it applies to trail running and running in general?
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll have plenty of talk about, from the running perspective, maybe just a snapshot from the business perspective of what's happening there. It's just like with everything I've talked about with athletes, like that ends up just becoming a number on a spreadsheet that the CFO has to approve when it comes to budget time. So it's not both good and bad. It's nothing personal to the people who are there. It's a strategy and it's a trade-off. So let's just let's say something costs $100 and you get to be an ambassador. And what you get in exchange for that is you get a discount. You get 40% off. Well, okay, so then $60 is what you're still going to pay for this pair of shoes or whatever it is. You're still covering costs. So the brand is going to cover its cost on all of its things, unless they're giving away something for free, but they're counting the cost. No matter what, they're counting the cost. And in return, you got to perform for them in some way. So I think that's probably part of the fun. It feels you get this kind of professional vibe feeling in the sport that you love. It's like, hey, this brand acknowledges that they think I can produce value for them. Now, sometimes maybe they think they're better runners than they are, or they think it's purely because of their running when really it's because of their influence. And it's it kind of feels like you feel honored to get the ambassador, check mark or whatever it is. But the brand is only going to do it if that tactic produces to their values. And so their values might be to create sales, which I don't know that the ambassador program, I've never seen someone who's an ambassador of a company where I'm going in and like purely buying because that person is the ambassador. I will go buy, like if it's Speedland and it's been on my mind. And then I see someone say, hey, use my code and get 10% off. Well, okay, great. So the ambassador program fits in to a larger marketing strategy. And this is my least favorite part about it, is that sometimes there's like this thing where they try to make the ambassadors feel really, really special. And I think it's in a way that can kind of be a bit disrespectful, where it's like, hey, you're great. You're incredible. You do produce for me. And It's a trade-off, and maybe they're aware of it, maybe they're not. But I think my initial thoughts go there of like, hey, I don't want any ambassador to be confused. You're not being picked because you're cool. You're not being picked because you're a great runner. You're being picked because you're cool and you're a great runner who knows how to market yourself. So you're a good marketer, and you're going to drag them along with you, and they're hopefully giving you something in return that's of value, like sales or exposure or whatever they're after. So that's how I think about ambassadorships.
Yeah. I think, and you said something interesting, right, about like the CFO terminology, and like I think for a lot of like trail programs, like I don't even know if it's that big or complex where you're thinking like CFO in like a corporate environment. Like it's, the CFO is probably also potentially like your ambassador team manager. Like that's how small these companies are, right? And it feels like almost if you want to be a company in the trail space, you have to have an ambassador program. Like you almost have to check that box to show that you're invested in the community. So sometimes, it feels like it's almost just kind of like a toss away program that's just there because they don't want to be the brand that doesn't have an ambassador program to be taken seriously, that they're invested in the trail space.
Yeah, let's take Death March Running Company as an example. I know those guys. I like them. They just introduced one. I think they introduced it this year. Or I'll say maybe this is the first year I saw it. And a lot of people I know are super stoked on it. And rightfully so. Again, they get to have this connection with a brand that they like and they feel like represents them. And I think, Death March has a sense of activation. So, like if they're going to be at a race, like I think those guys know how to party and to make people feel like they're a part of something. And that's ultimately what they're serving up, is the sense of a deeper connection. But the litmus test for me always is if this, and now I'm moving on generally, and I'm not just talking about Death March. If this didn't produce income, revenue, increased brand equity, would you still be doing this? And the answer is probably 99% to 100% of the time. The answer is no. So just remember, this is a business, endeavor on their end to accomplish what they need to accomplish. If it produced nothing, they wouldn't do it. Like most marketing initiatives, things that make you look good. Unfortunately, the things that make you that make you look good publicly are not necessarily the things that are the most good all the time. The good often, let's see, how do I normally say this? You can either appear to do good or you can do actual good. Unfortunately, it seems like that Venn diagram, there's almost no crossover, the appearance of good and actual good. So I think what they're trying to do here is the appearance of good, and there is some crossover with actual good because these people feel really, really proud, and rightfully so. I don't want to shit on that.
Yeah, totally. I was thinking too about like, the ambassador population within people who participate or identify as trail runners, like it's still a very small minority, like it does feel like they're everywhere, but I don't think it's, anywhere close to like 25% of trail runners are involved in an ambassador program. It'd be interesting to know where that stat line actually falls, but that's just kind of the sense I get of it is, there's far fewer ambassadors than we probably think, but because they activate and are posting frequently and are the most involved on social media, right? Like that personality type or that person, it makes it look like a larger group than it is. So yeah, I mean, I have a lot of experience with ambassador programs. So like I was starting to think like, what are the personality types that are drawn to the program? And, does that itself kind of create maybe some of the toxic culture or some of the toxic, side effects that we see of it sometimes? Because I figure like, I work in a corporate environment and you've got like, employee councils, right? Where these, employees get together and they create, spirit events and, do things for, associate celebration week and different things, right? They're like an organized committee members and they volunteer to do that just because they want to be involved in the company and, create a great work environment for everyone. I see that kind of like being some of the people who are drawn to ambassadors, right? Like they want to be involved, they lean into their community and they want to create, this fellowship with others, right? And then I definitely think there's others who get involved because they see it as like accreditation. It validates them. It makes them feel more of a committed trail runner if they have the right ambassador links on their profile.
Right.
So that's another personality type that gets into it. And then I think there's third, it's just kind of like a natural evolution. I feel like in trail running is like, it's an addictive sport. Like the training itself takes a long time. The podcast is, part of the scene. Like there's a lot to engage in. And it feels like, that's like a natural evolution. Like you get into the sport, you get curious, you pick up an ambassadorship, you start a podcast, you become a race director. You know what I mean? Like this is kind of the evolution of the manic trail runner, basically. So I see it, in those three buckets, it's all natural, but what do you think?
I think about what's starting to come to mind is when it backfires. Because someone who listens to the show regularly, I didn't chat with him that I was going to bring him up, so I don't want to say his name, but tagged me on something. And, regardless of when a brand doesn't pick someone, let's say a brand puts up, these are the 5 things we're looking for. They're objective. You need to have X number of followers. You need to run X number of races per year, whatever. And you objectively check the box on all of them. And then you get rejected. Well, I mean, you got, even if it, and I tend to be sympathetic to brands because I've lived on the side of owning businesses, but it backfires. And so you had this opportunity to build really great fondness and a deep relationship. I mean, you're talking about building a brand and you miss it, and it backfires so much so to where now you've actually lost that person who pays full price for your gear. And I know that that's rare, but it's, again, if we're talking about counting the cost, like that's an expensive mistake because someone who's going to apply for the ambassadorship is probably exceeds your average lifetime value of a customer. Let's say the average lifetime value for Speedland is $1,000, and then you piss off someone who's above average, they're going to spend $2,500 throughout their life. Now you've just lost all of that. And I feel like I hear that time to time enough to where maybe it's worth noting that it backfires. Have any of your ambassador relationships ever backfired?
No, nothing that comes to mind immediately. Yeah. I think, well, I mean, no, nothing in that lane, but like the thing is just that like they were always unfulfilling basically, right? Like whether I had too big of expectations of what it meant and then I get into it and I see it for what it was, and it's like, this just kind of like it, it cools off basically. And I think that's why they accept so many people into the program, is like they know it's a numbers game, right? Like it's low cost. Just be like, you're approved, you're on the roster, and then if we can get a couple different things out of you throughout the year, like it's just you're just churning the leads basically in like a sales culture, right? It's just like I'm out there cold calling, with whatever post and social media mentions I make, or at a race in person. Like it's just keeping the name out there. It's low cost, but like there wasn't really much ever that I was bringing to them tangibly, and that's kind of where my interest then waned, and it just, it wasn't fulfilling anymore.
As you say that, I realized I can answer my own question. I did try ambassadorship once, and it was with Borderlands. Generally with brands, I don't want to do I want to have a brand relationship with them, not a performance relationship with them to generate sales. But there was one I was like, hey, I really like this brand, and so I'll do this. It was an ambassador-like program, and they sell it as like the screening process is really difficult. I didn't care, and I don't know if I even believe it, but it royally backfired because they're also like a very green conscious company, and I had just bought some of their products recently, and then they brought me on as an ambassador relationship. And with the ambassador relationship, it was, we have no order minimums. We don't want to have waste of any kind. So we're not going to just send you product unless you need it. So this is a needs-based ambassadorship. So as you need something, you just make your case for it and we will send it to you. And so I signed it. And then I was like, hey, I want this and I want this. And they said, we looked in our system and it looks like you just bought something recently. So we don't agree with your case for it. And so we're not going to send you anything. And I was like, wait a second. So you're sending me like, here's what you want me to post. You want me to make this announcement and this thing on your behalf, but you're not going to send me anything? And they said, yeah, it's needs-based. You don't need it. It's like, we're done.
It was based on what they interpreted you needed, not based on your needs.
Yes. And so a lot of people, there's a lot of notable people who work with this company on this level. And I just think, oh man, I hope to run into this guy in person one time. Just to be like, hey, you go listen to this podcast, because I actually just made the case. You actually hurt. Not only will I never talk about your brand, I will never buy from it ever again. There is no chance. In fact, I will take delight out of buying from your competitor, even when I don't need it, if I can afford it. So yeah, that does backfire. There it is, backfiring.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of like the message here. Like when we're talking about like what messages are we trying to send, or, what are we trying to raise up to create change? It's like, message to the brand, like if you're going to have an ambassador program, like be thoughtful, right? Like, set clear communications up front, I guess, or like, like, I don't know how many times the ambassador liaison, that position has the highest turnover I've ever seen before. Within a calendar year, some of these times you've had like 2 or 3 different people come.
Oh, good point. Yeah.
It's like, you don't create any sort of like rapport. You're constantly trying to do a new introduction call. Things never really get off the ground. And so then another year goes by. And again, there's nothing actually structured within the program. It's just a bunch of people out dropping different, social media posts. And every quarter you get a delivery of goodies, which again, like trail running is expensive. Like, so let's be honest, there's also a person who's getting into ambassadorship because it helps you participate in this sport, at the 100-mile level, with a little bit of supplemental help from the brand itself. So, both people are kind of leeching off each other, and it could be elevated, and there are ambassador programs that do have good structure and good organization, but more times than not, I don't think they're like that.
That's a generous take. I like that take, to say, okay, if it's mutually beneficial, like, okay, if the expectations are low, unfortunately, maybe that's the culture. Like, hey, you say that this is what you're going to do. Brand A, you're going to do this. Well, on average, brands do about 70% of it. But I don't care. I get 60% off, and I'm trying to run 5 100-milers in the next year. That's actually, I can count the cost on my end. That's going to be $2,000 that you just saved me, because it's going to take me $10,000 to make this happen between travel and this and that. Whatever. I'm just making up numbers, but I like that take, to say that it's a someone who's got a day job and other stuff, it's a way to just lower their overall cost in the sport. So on that level, it's leeching / symbiotic in a good way.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And then, like we were talking on, like I don't think anybody who's in these type of amateur ambassador programs should ever feel like it's their identity. Like the only way that you can really take offense to the point of publicly denouncing the decision that a brand's made on the ambassador program and your involvement is if you took that ambassador role as your identity and now you're feeling personally judged or personally slighted. And it's like that's not fair. That's not what this is about. And you're misrepresenting like, the brand. Like unless the brand comes out and directly says like, these immutable characteristics we don't find appealing to you, right? Like you're a man, we don't want you. Like they don't say that, right? So like don't be offended. Like don't feel entitled to anything. Like just roll with it. If you've gotten into the program, great, but like it didn't make you a better runner. It didn't make you a better person. So try not to, think too highly or, get too proud of yourself for the ambassador moniker that you get to claim.
Yeah. With Borderlands, I did a version of it last year. So it was but I was really trying to provide like value and wanted to try and really was hoping to over deliver, but it's hard to manage. And it was industry trail teams, and I created like 75 trail running teams. And because my goal was not to just say, you are ambassadors of Borderlands. I was really trying to say, hey, will you do this? Like if you're looking for someone to run with, I can help you connect with people in your city. It's hard to connect with people to run with if you're looking for somebody. So I'll use my audience to find everyone who's looking for someone in your area. And it went really well, but it was very busy. I created like 75 teams in 65 cities, 650 people. And then we ended up getting a wait list of about 100 who were in rural parts of America or parts where I didn't have other teams. And so they just went into their own little huddle in chatting with one another. This was all eventually what turned into the app that I'm building, Wilder. And so in exchange, I was like, hey, will you put Borderlands in your bio on Instagram? And, as I make this connection, or that you're on the industry trail team. And for me, I wanted people, that was just a marketing tactic in exchange for the amount of time that took, which is like 25 hours at one point a week. In exchange for that, would you just, let the world know that you're a part of this? And so there's that trade-off piece. And I think at first I was over delivering and then ran out of steam. And that was the reason the app came from that, is because it's like, hey, there's demand here. I want to try and turn this into a product. So it doesn't take just one person constantly chatting in 75, run clubs. So we can go back to this place of there's a good heart behind it, sometimes, but they're very hard to manage and they're nearly impossible to, from an accountability standpoint. There's a lot of software out there that's like, here, manage your ambassador programs. Because if you have to post once a month and you have to do this once a month and this once a month, and you've got 1,000 people, it's nearly impossible. So you're really just throwing it out into the ether and hoping that these people accomplish what they say they will in exchange for what you give them. So it's hard. It's a mess. And honestly, as a business tactic, if that costs you, $65,000 in payroll to have someone manage it, plus $60,000 in product a year, $120,000. My question becomes, can you spend $110,000 and get more bang for your buck? I think the answer is yes, but that's going to differ across brands.
Yeah, exactly. And that's your thing, right? About your Venn diagram of like, there's the things that you can say that make you feel like you're doing good. And then there's the things that you can do that make you an actual company that's doing good. And like, they don't work cohesively together in the ambassador program because it's truly just a numbers game. Like the brand does better if they have 500 ambassadors that they can invest $1 into. They'll probably get a bigger ROI on that $500 than if they were to have, 50 ambassadors, but they were going to have, a $10 investment for those 50 and really pour into those 50 with a better, cohesiveness. It would have, better leadership from the brand, better engagement, right? Like they're not a brand I see that's really moving in that direction. The ambassador programs are just continually growing. Like the numbers on some of these with the big brands, like, I don't know, Tailwind or what else is there out there that have big ones, It's basically all of your gels, I think, because people consume gels on such a high rate that like into a nutrition company with gels or liquid nutrition, like, they all have large platforms, Orange Mud is out there. Like they're one of the older brands. I know they've got thousands, like, so, and they don't ever really, it's not like the roster ever turns over. Once you're in, you're basically in, as long as you keep reapplying. And so these things just exponentially continue to grow as long as you stay responsive to emails and whatever.
Sign up on time.
Exactly.
Okay, an aha moment then from what you just said. Then you're right. I see the nutrition brands a lot too. So just the eye test, and that makes sense because I think with nutrition, their cost of goods, without getting too much into like business jargon, for every $1, let's say they sell it for $1, I bet they're paying about 10 cents. So I think their 10% is their goods cost, and maybe let's say 20%. So basically multiply what they pay for it times 5, and that's what it goes out into the world. Compare that to apparel. Sometimes they're multiplying it times 2 or like 2.5. So it costs on $100. So Satisfy, they're selling it for $300. That means it's costing them $100 per unit. And they may be getting more margin, but point being, nutrition. And that's why you see it so much with supplements. For some reason, people's willingness to pay is so high for supplements. So something that costs the supplement company 5 cents to make, they can sell it for, $50. So there's all this margin. So you see, them spending that money everywhere. One time I had the CFO of Revlon come to a thing that I was doing with other entrepreneurs, and he said, the liquid in the bottle cost us 50 cents. The bottle itself cost us $2. The box costs us $3, and we sell it for $100. So I think probably in nutrition is very much in similar economics, and so that's why it makes more sense that they're out there. I think apparel companies, it's a very expensive thing to have a company like that. Thinking Death March specifically, since I've already talked about them, I don't know that they're having custom cut shirts, so they're using blanks and they're screen printing really awesome stuff on it. Their costs are high, relative to, let's say, a Path Projects who's doing custom cut and sew, but they're also ordering 20,000 units of a shirt. So their cost is low. So, I mean, it's an expensive game. So now I go back to, as a business owner, would I rather spend, if I was Speedland, would I spend 100,000 on my ambassador program or 100,000 on something else? I would really be looking hard at something else because of how hard ambassador programs are.
Right. Yeah. I was going to bring this up too, because I think kind of the ambassador culture is just, it's basically just like the elite level kind of diluted down, right? Like we talk a lot about how like in running, or I've said it before, the product is the gear, not running itself. And so like the ambassador program just kind of fits right in with that, as far as like, it takes a lot of consuming goods to participate in running, the amount of gels you go through, the amount of socks, shoes, clothes, right? You name it. Like there's so many opportunities for brands to engage, right? And then like you kind of want to emulate, what the pros are doing. You see how they're engaging with brands. And I had showed you this Courtney post, it was a cool post. She talked about, being fascinated with the distance and, how the miles and the big numbers were scary early on. And, it's a throwback post showing all of her like pictures before it was sponsored and was really on anybody's radar. Right. And then you click on the Instagram and you see all the tags on it. Solomon Running, Feed Me, Tailwind Nutrition, Sunto, Injinji, We Are Sun God, Kodiak Cakes, Lecky Trail Running Poles, Petzl Running, Squirrel's Nut Butter. That's on, like, so, like, if the pros are doing it, like, then I'm going to try and get mine too, right? So, like, there's no shame, I guess. Let's just go ahead and, slap as many tags as we can get and consume as much as we can. And, it's just, like, crazy how much consumerism is in running. Well, also trying to greenwash everything and to reduce your carbon footprint. Like, I get it. Like, it doesn't take any sort of emissions to put the tag on there. But if I were to go buy all of those products, have them shipped to my house and manufactured somewhere, you know?
Yeah, I think have we said it here before or somewhere else? Like recently, we used to say I love running because let's like just put on some shoes and go for a run. I mean, who does that anymore? Who just puts on some shoes and goes for a run anymore? You put on your shoes, you put on your nice shorts, you put on your. I mean, my socks used to never match, and now they match when I run. And a nice shirt, and then a pack, and then a $500 watch, and then this killer Satisfy running cult member hat that's expensive, all this sort of stuff, and no judgment on it, but it's no longer just a pair of shoes, and going for a run.
No. And I love it, dude. It's hard, like
I'm not shitting on it. I love it.
No, and exactly. And like, the minute you turn on a podcast or start contributing to a podcast, you're going to be a hypocrite, right? Like you're going to say things that are like critical of something that you're guilty of. And like, guilty. Like, I love the consumerism part of this sport, but it's always good to just kind of, get things out and flush them out and see if there's others out there that kind of were curious about the ambassador program, or always, kind of got annoyed during the ambassador renewal season when everybody's dropping their proud to be ambassador of, posts,
right,
and everything else, right? So
every time I see one of those, and maybe it's because I come from a business owner perspective, I just think, man, good job to that business. I don't know how this came on my radar at one point, but I remember thinking this way in junior high, seeing kids wear Abercrombie and Fitch shirts, says Abercrombie and Fitch really big. Maybe my jealousy was because I secretly wished I could have afforded one. And, my girlfriend's mom bought me one once. But you're just wearing a red shirt that says Abercrombie and Fitch, like huge. Do you realize how big of a win that is for them?
Yeah.
Because you paid for it full price, 10x what they paid for it. And then you wear it, then you're a billboard. So it's like free. Not only is it free advertising, you're paying them to advertise for their brand. That's a good job.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I mean. It's hard to break something that's been institutionalized into your brain since you were a kid.
Yeah.
Whether it's like, you want the jersey of your sports star, or, you've got celebrities that you admired, or music, whatever the case is, like you always want to own it for yourself and, shout to the world that, this is who I am and this is who I represent with the way that you present yourself.
I know you're a big fan of NORA shoes. Do they have an ambassador program? Are you part of that? Like, what has the experience been like there? It seems like anyone who's a NORA fan is a NORA like evangelist, and not in an obnoxious way either. It's actually anyone I can think of. My friend Matt Burback, anybody, like they just want to tell you about them. But it's not like, vegans who want to tell you that they're vegan.
Right.
It's just like, I like this shoe and you should absolutely give it a try. And is that you? Are you in that camp? Like, you a big NORA guy?
Oh man. Yeah. I love NORA. So no, they don't have any sort of like formal ambassador program. And they were slow to introduce like an actual, elite trail team, so it was called 665 before,
What does that mean?
It was like a latitude or longitude location. It was, again, like this is what I love about NORA. They're not going to be obnoxiously obvious, right? It's not going to be like NORA, elite trail running team, right? That's not that's not the ethos of the brand is elite. Like it's NORA for everyone. And so and how they introduced a team of professional, talented trail runners, they did it in an artful way, in a tasteful way. 665, there's always something mysterious and curious about the way NORA presents themselves, the way that they campaign or launch campaigns with new shoes or colorways or collabs. Right. It was a thing that I wanted to be a part of, right? So when they launched early on in 2021, I was just always reaching out and messaging them. And it's a small group of 4 people: the owner, the brand developer, all of them. Like they were accessible. So I was able to.
That's important.
I was able to talk with them and just share my passion for the shoe. And I mean, they had sent me some stuff and lean back into supporting me, and so it was a great relationship there, and it was just totally organic and all based on their goodwill and seeing something in me that they wanted to support. So I I think everybody who engages with NoraN in some way, whether it's just looking at their product online and their social medias and the writing, you know, behind some of the articles, like, yeah, it becomes like a natural thing that you want to engage in and share with everyone.
Yeah.
It's different.
Yeah. I mean, this wasn't my goal, but look at the outcome of how they've chosen to operate. You just said a dozen nice things about them, none of which were how good the shoes feel on your feet. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? I'm not saying they don't,
Right.
but because they were accessible, because of all these things, like this is the goal of an ambassador program, is that someone given a mic and an audience, that person would talk about that brand and give them that notoriety. So that's all. So my point is that ambassadorship is a tactic. Norda didn't do that. They chose another route, which was intentional. And it sounds like they made you feel like $1 million. They gave you their attention. They did this. They did, you know, a number of different things, and they're getting the exact same outcome as an ambassador program from you. So I think that's an interesting observation, just to see the impact that they had on you. And in return, you are giving you the reason. I mean, I had to ask, I thought for sure your answer was going to be yes, that you were an ambassador, that they had a program, because of how much you like them and how much you know, you'll post about them if a new pair comes out, or you'll repost their stuff. So they're getting that dream outcome, and they're coming about it a different way, a more manageable way, it sounds like, but maybe also there's a heavy human resource cost to be on top of social and on top of emails.
Right. Yeah. No, I think they, I know. I mean, yeah, I'm biased in the sense that, like, you know, I do genuinely like the brand and the people, you know, that work at the company. But yeah, I think they nailed it, you know, as far as like, how does a boutique running trail shoe brand from Canada, you know, launch in 2021, you know, come out of the pandemic and then have distribution globally into all markets, Asia, Europe, the United States, Canada, where they're from, right? Like, I think what they've done is, like, you know, fascinating from a technical standpoint. Their shoes high quality. They're coming out with the 005, which is next level quality. And then from a business standpoint, just seeing, you know, how they were able to spread so quickly. You know, they came out the same time some other high end shoes came out, and if you look to see the market penetration, it's crazy. You know how much further they've expanded, you know, with their shoe.
Yeah, and you know, and with the current competition, I think one of our next episodes with Taylor Bodine is going to be Norda, at least Norda in combination of some of the other newer brands.
Yeah.
And it's wild. It's wild to see, because it's one thing to buy blank shirts and screen print on them. It's another to launch a shoe company. I mean, it's the closest thing in the trail world to, you know, Elon starting a car company. Like, disregard how you feel about the person, a freaking car company. Like, shoes are not just, hey, I've got an idea. There's a significant strain on capital to buy shoes, and the number of sizes you have to buy, and the way you have to get inventory right, and all that sort of stuff. So for Norda to have supply chain figured out and customer service figured out on day one, it sounds like, is that's special.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure, you know, Taylor's met the founder and co-founders, the husband and wife, Nick and Willa. So I would be surprised if he didn't also lead with, they're just freaking awesome people. You know, like,
really, very cool.
I would be shocked if that wasn't one of the first things when Norda gets brought up, is just how, you know, passionate and relatable and humble the team comes across. And yeah, I mean, they have decades of experience in footwear, you know, so designing footwear, you know, as a career, and then eventually I think just got frustrated that they were passionate trail runners up in the Canadian wilderness and never had a shoe that really felt like it delivered. And so, yeah, they took the pandemic as an opportunity to go all in on it, and they designed the 001 and I guess never looked back.
Yeah. I mean, so their approach compared to the normal ambassador approach, the thing that back to, there's, you get to feel like you get to feel like Courtney when she has all those things. Back to what you said, I think that's powerful.
Right.
So for me, if it was gonna, you know, I don't want to mention another brand that I actually did it with, but if it's Apple phones, you know, like I get to publicly say I'm affiliated with them. I feel very cool. I feel like I'm in the part of the community. They're not necessarily saying that, but they're communicating. It just feels cool. It feels nice. It feels like you belong. And I think that element of belonging However, we can accomplish that within trail running because we are not gatekeepers. We want these gates to be not only held open but broken down. Anything that makes you feel like you connect and belong here, on the positive sense, the more the merrier.
Absolutely. So yeah, that was cool. We got to go down a little Norda tangent there.
Yeah,
I haven't
yeah,
talked about them at all recently, so yeah, always super fun to support them and throw them some
yeah.
good appreciation. But yeah, I mean, so the one kind of last thing that I wanted to touch on with the ambassador, program or culture is kind of the irony, right? Of like ambassadorships kind of like celebrated and everybody lifts each other up. And, I think we all kind of appreciate, the every man, the every woman that kind of like gets their shine with the ambassadorship, right? But like I would think the goal would be that like you become such a good ambassador that you then evolve into an influencer.
Mm.
And the minute you become an influencer, you're demonized. We hate you. You're annoying. You're a plague on the sport. So for me, really, the influencer
Oh,
is just the best version of an ambassador. You're doing it with an actual tangible ROI on the company that in a business perspective, you can go to them and say, look, no, I'm worth more
yeah.
than your products and goods now. Like the influencer is the elite
Oh,
professional trail runner version of the ambassador, right? So like
yes.
why do we turn quickly on influencers when they're just the ambassador at a
Mm.
at a level that they can actually be compensated as their identity is as big as the brand. They become so good at being an ambassador that their name is as important as the brand they're representing. Does that make sense?
Gosh, yes, it 100% makes sense. Okay, so I think about, I'm watching Sprint season 2 right now, and it's delivering. It's so good. But Noah Lyles is an animated character. And when I had Marley on last week, Dickinson, I was like, hey, do you know, like, I'm curious, what is the contract size? What kind of money is Lyles making? And he said, I don't know the exact, but he said it's going to be between $5 and $10 million a year. It's like, okay, there's eyes and ears there. That makes me want to do some content in that space because there's people watching, paying attention, spending money. But then the other main character that they're going with is Curley. I can't remember his first name, last name Curley.
Yeah, Craig or I don't know.
I want to say Todd, but then am I thinking of Todd Gurley?
Right, I'm thinking of the football player. So, anyways,
Yes. Okay, and Curley went to South Plains College, where I went. It's a bluegrass music school that had a track program that he was at and apparently dominated. And in that, Curley is saying, I'm not like Lyles. I'm not a big, colorful, animated character. That's not what we're here for. I'm here to run. And so the discussion with my wife is because this is always what I'm talking about now. Is like, but if Curley was a little bit more animated, he'd be getting $5 to $10 million a year. And so to your point of, because Lyles is influencing people and creating value for Adidas because of that loud personality. So no, it's not about running. It's still unfortunately, and I hate to be such a pessimist about this, it's still about selling gear. You're running, Jim Walmsley, your good running you're getting paid to do that because you sell gear. That's why they give you the money. So when someone graduates from ambassador to influencer, I can't, other than maybe they're annoying to be around when they're getting their footage. I get that. I am that sometimes. You bring up a really great point that we then all of a sudden, I don't know, did they sell out? What's the word? What am I looking for?
well, and this is going to be the controversial take of the episode here. To me, the influencers that ascend are the ones that are most aesthetically influenced. The ones that are the most aesthetically appealing.
Yeah.
Take that for what it is, right? They're either
Yeah.
men who are physically fit,
Yeah.
or women who are attractive and physically fit. Like there are some certain things that just are similar in the top end of fitness influencers running,
Right.
across the board, right?
Yeah.
And those are the ones that get villainized the most, I think, because they have attributes that are harder to achieve for somebody. It's going
Yeah.
to take a different type of work or genetics and they feel, I think people feel like they're casting judgment on them, thinking that influencer is there solely because of their good looks or
Oh, I
the
see.
tone, right? And so I
Yeah.
can't ever do that. So I got to attack that to make it feel like it's a negative, is my judgment of why that
Yeah.
happens, right? But simultaneously, what can happen is somebody can ascend to be the same level of as an influencer. And if you have a body composition or something else that you bring to the table that's on the polar opposite of end, that we're trying to lift up and give visibility to, they're fine. So if all
Yeah.
if all things are equal for the two, right?
Mm-hmm.
This one gets the negative criticism for being the aesthetically or attractive person or having the qualities that are harder to obtain for everyone. The other person who's being lifted up as kind of like an underserved representation of the community, right? We all know that
Yeah.
person will never get villainized, even though they might have millions of followers and be promoted just as heavily. So I can't make those two line up, right? Like they're doing the same amount of influencing, they're getting rewarded with some of the same amount of perks, but the
Yeah.
public response is wildly different.
Yeah. Yeah. I track with you on that, and then I also think, yeah, I mean, I don't know that it's like maybe another way to say it is just, if not exactly what you said, it's pure jealousy to some degree. You see someone putting out really killer content. Let's say Matt Johnson.
I was just going to go there. Yeah.
Yeah, he's so good at content. You see, and now am I his target demo? I'm not entirely in certain things, but as like pure, like I love seeing that dude succeed, and I love the way he talks. It's because I wish I had that confidence. So I see that and I think, man, I'd love to be like that. And because I don't think he doesn't hurt anybody with his arrogance. He really actually sounds, rather than hurt anybody with his arrogance, he benefits himself with that arrogance and then encourages other people to have some self-respect. But I think someone else could look at that and be like, yeah, I could do that though. I could do that. It's not that hard. Or maybe it's like, he just got lucky. Like you were saying, like it's nothing special about them. It's just that they got lucky. So yeah, I think on some levels, it's like, was I a Green Day fan when they put out 10,039 Smoothed Out Slappy Hours and Kerplunk? No. But when they released Dookie in 94, I became a fan and then all of a sudden acted like they sold out because that's the punk rock way in 1994. And all of a sudden I acted like I was a fan during 10,039 Smoothed Out Slappy Hours when I wasn't. So on some levels, it's hard for us to celebrate someone else. Maybe that's what I reduce it down to. It's hard to be happy for someone else when we really wish it was, when we would rather be happy for ourselves.
Right. But it's weird because, again, the influencers who are received as the most annoying also seem to be penetrating the market the largest as well, right? So it's almost like
Yeah.
I don't know what the ratio is, but it seems like it's like, I don't know, 5-1, 10-1 of like people who are like positive, giving them positive reinforcement, right? Celebrating the identity of who they are, so they get the most amount of hate, but they clearly get the most amount of love. And I just don't know.
See it as like some sort of matrix of annoying to popularity. There's some point at which you become too annoying to be popular, but to be popular to some degree, you have to be, quote unquote, annoying, willing to speak out at any given time and capture the content when the content is there to be captured, no matter who's around you. So there's like some sort of like parabola or something like this, where there's like a place where annoyance meets popularity, and that's like the dream for me. That point, I'm really unwilling to be annoying. I don't want to be even looked at in public. And so my point's too low to be really, really popular. But someone like Matt doesn't care, or he's got the personality type that likes to be seen. That's, some people look at that and judge that when really that's just a personality type, and it should be celebrated.
That's a huge piece of the pie. Is the willingness and the desire to want to be seen, like the comfort in always being available to somebody for criticism is a huge characteristic that it requires to become like that.
I
But
totally agree. I
But
totally
yeah, I mean,
agree.
I think I don't know, like it's not there quite with trail. You know, you guys talked about was it Matt Choi, the
Yeah.
New York road marathoner, right? Who
Yeah.
crossed some lines and had to pay some consequences for it, and I'm sure it was a
Yeah.
learning experience for everyone to kind of know where the line's at right now, and then how to create a better environment where these influencers
Yeah.
can participate because they are a net good for the sport and clearly the
Yes.
race because of the visibility and eyes they capture. So they just have to work together to better prevent any sort of like negative consequence for people who don't
Yeah.
appreciate that, right? But like, it's a cautionary tale for trail running because I think
Yeah.
there's maybe 50% of trail runners who think I'm here for trail running because I don't want any of that crap, and they maybe
Yeah.
assume that like that is the whole makeup of trail running. But I think there's another half of trail running that are like, I want that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I want to bring
Yeah.
trail running. I want the visibility. I want the content. I want the influencer capture. So like
Yes.
we're kind of in an interesting space here where, yeah, we're starting to see it take, a bigger, it's starting to infiltrate the sport, and you're seeing some people immediately
Yeah.
trying to shut it out, and then others are wanting
Yeah.
to welcome it more. Like Leadville's a good case we talked about. I think Leadville's like the case study for the influencer
Yes.
infiltration into trail running.
I think with that, like, yes, this sport would be fine without content creators. Sure. And whatever. Content, well, I'm sitting here in Paris, far from mountains or deserts that I love so much. Man, to see Matt Johnson run across Texas and all that footage, oh, I loved it. Like to see Joe Corcione want to, crush Javelina and get 10th. I needed to see that content, like that stuff is super, super valuable. And Matt Choi, I don't know the guy, but I would lead the charge to get New York Marathon to put him back in next year with now at this point with New York Marathon apologizing to him. Like a lifetime ban is just it serves nobody. And
No.
so that to me, maybe that's my hottest take of the thing. I think New York Marathon owes Matt Choi an apology now at this point because they went too far. The way I said it with Marley, it's like New York Marathon did the same thing I do to my 5-year-old when I'm stressed. I take away something he loves for a week because
Right.
he did one thing, and I'm going to show him. And then it's like I calm down. It's like, no, but you can't do it the rest of today. But a week was too much. Like that's what I'm waiting for New York Marathon to come back to do.
Yeah, but I think it was fine. I think the lifetime ban created more conversation. So again, if the goal
Yeah.
of the influencer and the race is to get the story to live on longer than the race itself, we're still talking about it now. And then,
Yeah.
they can always retract it later and make news again. So like
Absolutely.
in this sick, disgusting world of news cycle, like they're playing the man, they're playing it the best. If you were looking at it from like, this kind of 4D chess level where you're making moves and in future influence as well.
And just a reminder to everyone, RUNMORE649. Text us or call us if you and let us know what you think about anything that we've said so far, because I really don't want to miss out, especially if we've said anything to this point. 786-667-3649. I've always wanted to be on the radio, and that just makes me feel like I'm on the radio.
I love it.
Anyway, tell me what you think about my Matt Choi take. I want to hear it.
Yeah, it works. So I left a test message this morning. Did my best Debo impersonation just to make the first message.
I thought it was the real Debo.
And hey fam. So, yeah,
oh man.
Any other quick hits? I know there was some other news you were talking about. Maybe we want to follow that as we.
Yeah. Here's one that just made me laugh. Marley Dickinson tweeted, posted on X, whatever it's called. He was reported on LinkedIn for misinformation, and at the same time that he was reported for misinformation. How LinkedIn can show you who's been looking at your profile. It's one of my least favorite things about LinkedIn. But at the same time that he was reported and he posted the picture, Camille Herron was just moments ago on his LinkedIn. So do with that what you will. I reached out. I was like, hey, are you going to do, is there anything more to that? And he's like, no, it's just a funny tweet. There's nothing else that's going to be happening there. But yeah, I thought old habits die hard.
Clearly, right? I mean, it's fair to, there's no more benefit of the doubt. Like, I will happily run with that as that is fact-based reporting.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's so disappointing though. Like, you don't want to pile on somebody when they're already down, but like, God,
yeah,
you're your own worst enemy. Like,
at that point,
yes. Yeah. What are you doing?
Self-sabotage.
That's why the internet's the devil, man. Just
yeah.
If we didn't have the internet, then we'd be a lot better off.
Okay, here's another thing. I was just given the green light to announce today. I'm going to do a group run with Billy Yang in Salt Lake City on January 18th. I think you should try and be there for it. No pressure. It's a 5K. We're going to do the Michael Bolton final mile there just for fun. I don't think Billy knows that yet. But then we're going to do a live recording of the podcast and a live Q&A with Billy. And I can't tell you how excited I am about that. So I'm gonna be in Salt Lake City for less than 48 hours to pull that off. So I'll fly in, we'll run, we'll do the live podcast, we'll do the Q&A. I'll go back to sleep and then fly back to Paris. But if all of a sudden you see the programming on that and we release it and you get pumped, you let me know. I don't have a place for you to stay. I don't have a place to stay there anymore, but it'd be fun.
That's awesome. Is this going to be around the race, or is it?
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Yes, Path Projects is a sponsor of the race, and they're the sponsor of this run, helping make it happen. Billy works very closely with them, and so what we're going to do to get into the live podcast and the Q&A, venue hasn't been selected. We've got it narrowed down, but I haven't selected it. If you're signed up for the race, you get in free, and you get in. When registration will be open to you exclusively for a week. And then after that, it's people who've ran our race historically will be able to get in. And then if there's any left over, then we'll open it to the general public, and it'll be for free to the general public as well. But it's highly likely that there won't be enough seats. I think it may be 100 seats. So
awesome.
Yeah, man. I mean, let's talk about a dream come true for me. That's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of touched on it with the comment you made in the last 100 episode, which I wanted to celebrate. Congratulations. I mean, 100 episodes is certainly a feather in the cap, and
thank you.
Short period of time too just shows how passionate and how much fun you've had doing this with the podcast. And I mean, for anybody to be criticizing how you're doing this, or the way that you're taking on the media landscape. I just seem as foolish, and probably disingenuous, and a bit of jealousy, from their own microphone. So the fact that you've got a brand like Path Projects, which is a real OG in the trail space,
dude, so good.
In California, where I'm from, so very familiar. And then you've got the content king, Bill Yang,
the GOAT. He's going to be hard to beat.
I think everybody has a genesis story of getting into trail running and being touched or being, influenced by Billy Yang. So to have him, go and support a race that you're involved with and something you're behind is good validation, right? Like nothing to get too big of an ego, but I think it validates that you are doing things and approaching this, in a healthy,
Yeah. So, I mean, sometimes you hear the detracting voices louder than the positive voices. And, so that what I mentioned on the 100th episode was that someone meaningful in the community of trail and the business side reached out and said he didn't like the way I was playing the media game. And I didn't think I was really playing the media game. I thought I had a podcast and was trying to get some sponsors, all that sort of stuff. I didn't think media game. But to be honest, that could have done two things to me. That could have made me sad or mad or jealous or whatever on my end. Or I took it and just tried to say, I didn't feel like I had legitimately done anything to this person. And now it just made me want to not do something to this person, but build something of Borderlands in media sense that was just justifiably could frustrate people in the industry because it's such a behemoth. And, that's just the way I work as an entrepreneur. I want to build big things. I want to build meaningful things. And I never want to step on anyone's toes while I'm doing it. But sometimes that just happens when you're building. You take market share, you lose it at times, but and then to get to sit with Billy on some levels, it's hard sometimes to even just receive good opportunities and wear them, with pride, because it's like, well, yeah, but Path is trying to headquarter in Utah now, so they needed something there. I just happened to be there, so it's not because of me, it's because of that. So there's just like all sorts of it's like a cocktail, in the brain, that it's hard to just celebrate something. But this one is one of those things, like, I've been thinking like, what's my opening question? I can't just hit him with something light, something silly. Like, I'm going to talk about how I watched The Why. I tried to show it to my dad to get him to understand. And, who's his version of Billy Yang? Who's Billy Yang's Billy Yang? And who did he cut his teeth on? And I just think it's going to be, for me, an unforgettable day. And I hope for the 100 to 200 people that can be there live, it will be too.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a fun, the only time I've ever come across Billy Yang in person was in the Javelina 100K, the 2022, I guess it would have been. He ran the 100K, and
you ran into him while out running.
Yeah.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, Loop 3 was able to run up next to him for a little bit. Of course, you got to give him his flowers as you're passing him by. Tell him how awesome all those videos were, and tell him I'll see you at the finish line.
Oh man, yeah. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Who knows if he gets tired of it? He's so accessible in the community. I ran into him once at UTMB, and where I was randomly standing with Zach Miller's parents. I didn't know I was standing with Zach Miller's parents until after talking to him for like 30 minutes. And then Billy comes up, and they're like, "Oh, Billy, this guy lives in Salt Lake City, and he knows a guy that went to high school with Zach." Shout out to Luke Bingaman in Lancaster. And I tried to play it cool. I was like, "Your name is Billy? Did you say Billy?
William?
Nice to meet you."
William?
Yeah. Can I call you William? Would you mind? I don't feel like I know you well enough to call you Billy. But yeah, he's super, accessible in the community. It's the perfect snapshot of, like, he's a rock star in his niche, and
he is.
He even transcended the niche.
I feel like his image is more impressive in person. He's a cool dude. You know what I mean? Like, his stature, you know what I mean? Like, he's bigger, like a lot of these trail runners that you see in person, like, they're much smaller, shorter.
Yeah, great point.
Or, more silhouette, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, good point.
You're like, no, that dude's the dude, like, it's cool. Yeah.
He's solid.
Yeah.
Oh man.
So on with your running? We making any sort of gains, or are we just treading water, or going backwards?
I got 2.5 miles in this week. It's just like I'm in full on fundraising mode for the app that we're building, and putting the team together for that. And just every day, like in my normal run time, it's just every day just gets, man, I might be able to work my time better, but it's just not there. So, it's got, like, this weekend has to kick off. I'm going to publicly say I'm going to get 12 total miles this weekend. I'm going to say it. You can ask me about it next week.
Awesome.
My heart is like bursting with excitement for running and for getting out there. I can feel it coming. It's just, man, the stage of life, this 6-week season is just not there. But I'm still walking so much in Paris. I'm still walking 6 to 8 miles a day. So I'm moving a lot, just not running.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a cautionary tale, right? When you try and turn something you love doing into, a
business.
It's like goodbye once you try to turn it into a business, or, something other than a hobby.
I've done it with everything. I did it with coffee. I did it with restaurants. I did it with bookkeeping. I liked bookkeeping a lot. I did it with cocktails. Now I've done it with running, but small price to pay. I love it.
Right. Awesome, dude.
All right. Well, let's do this again next week.
Yeah. Hopefully we've got some callers.
Please.
Sure. Right. Or,
RUNMORE649. RUNMORE649. Call us. Leave us a message. Text if you must, but we'd rather hear your voice, and we'll play it on future episodes.
There you go.
All right. See you, man.